Hello, hello. The summer sale is over and the wallets can rest, but I for one bought far too many games, and that means I have a few new-to-me indies that I think might be worth putting on your own wishlist. As always, I'll keep them as spoiler-free as I can, but let's jump right into it. Vomitoreum is a lo-fi metroidvania first-person shooter with a pixel art horror aesthetic inspired by the paintings of
Zdzisław Beksiński.
And if you know who that is, then you know you're in for some weird shit. That being said, despite the grim backstory that the game presents, its tone might seem to contradict itself with the simple, almost colorful pixel art. It puts me in mind of something like Cult of the Lamb, where things were cheerfully morbid, but I do have to warn you that there are some pretty heavy themes involved in the story, including sexual assault. It doesn't involve your character, but still, if that's a hard line for you, you might want to give this one a pass. It's a very Lovecraftian setting where a giant, unknowable monster came down from space and warped all of humanity into shambling monsters, some of which have tits out, so if the first warning didn't tell you this, maybe don't play this one at the family reunion. Now that the world is long past the point of saving, your job is just to put an end to the story. Like all of our stories, this one will end in death. You bring that death with a gunplay that feels oddly familiar. It's almost... Wait a minute, is this a Doom mod? You think you can bring that shit into my house? You think you can just wrap up Doom in a metroidvania and I wouldn't notice? Like giving a dog medicine and a piece of cheese? Well, I mean, I do like cheese. No, you don't have to take it away. No, it's fine, you can leave the medicine in it. I'm surprised to say that despite not really caring for the earliest Doom titles, I really enjoyed the game feel of Vomitoreum. Your movement in the game is quick, almost too fast, and I wound up turning off the auto run as well as disabling view bobbing, though it took a while for me to find the options to do so. I also turned up the gamma and enabled the crosshair for comfort and to reduce motion sickness, which has never been a problem in any other game, but sometimes Doom is like shooting on a slip and slide. The pistol you start with will get you pretty far since it has basically unlimited range and fires almost as fast as you can click your mouse, but there are at least 5 weapons in the game and I still hadn't found 2 of those when I finished it for the first time. Enemies don't respawn, ammo is unlimited, and health potions refill when you save, so combat can be quick and brutal, especially in the early game, while still not being overly punishing. If you're like me, most of your deaths will come early anyway, usually because the game doesn't really do a great job of communicating with the player. Deep water will kill you fast, but for me at least, it was impossible to tell if water was deep without walking into it, and when you die, your camera just sits there until you press the E key, but the game doesn't tell you that either. So I imagine most players' first impression of the game was drowning and then staring at a blue screen waiting to respawn while the game just laughs at you. It took me a while to figure out where I needed to go. There's a map, but if you're not used to navigating an old Doom level, it can be difficult to tell where it wants you to go next. Luckily, since the enemies don't respawn, you'll know when you're somewhere you haven't been before. Even with that lack of direction, the game's only a few hours long. You might get a lot more out of it if you're the type to do speedrunning, but I'd expect your first playthrough to take less than 3 hours. At that length, Vomitoreum might be asking some players a little much at its $10 base price, but I grabbed it for $5 on the Steam sale, and for less than a steak, egg, and cheese bagel, it's easy to recommend to my fellow edgelords. Metal Garden is a very drab first-person shooter, so it may surprise you to know that it's probably my favorite game on this list of games that I enjoyed quite a bit. It's set in a megastructure, and if you've seen my Naissance video, you know I love me a good megastructure. Still, I don't think it'll be for everyone. It's not a game that stands on the quality of its gunplay or its visual presentation. The enemies are simple, both in their design and in their AI. There are only 5 weapons if you count the knife and the grenades, and even the megastructure setting really just comes down to a difference of skyboxes. If you took the same world, put a pale blue sky up there, and told me this was future punk Poland, I could believe you. But it's amazing how effective that simple change is in the way that it makes you feel about the environment. The whole game is very desaturated and gray, but of course it is. There's no sun, at least not one that you can see. You'll spend large sections of the game underground, but is there such thing as underground when the Kuiper belt is somewhere below you and the next strata of the structure looms miles overhead? If the goal is to be free, what is freedom from something so vast? Are you free when you're floating dead in the vacuum of space? What kind of civilizations could rise and die to sit forgotten in an unknown pocket of something so huge and brutal? This is the headspace that a good megastructure puts me in, and it's what I felt playing this game even though it was short and very obviously indie. There are a lot of rough edges around to find, but it helps that the combat is actually pretty enjoyable. The guns are satisfying to use, and there's an injury system that keeps things interesting while not being too punishing over the game's few hours of runtime. There are modifiers you can adjust if things are too easy or hard for you, but I'm not a great shooter as you can probably tell from whatever video is playing right now, and I still got through it without any real problems on the default settings. There isn't much of a story to dig into, but I enjoyed exploring the levels, and there are apparently sections I still haven't found yet. If anything, I just wish there were more of this game to enjoy. It only came out back in March of 2025 though, so maybe we'll get a sequel someday. There's not a lot more I can say about the game without totally spoiling it, but if it looks interesting to you, it goes for $6 on Steam. It was on sale for 15% off, but I doubt 60 cents is going to change your mind either way. So I might be stretching the limits of FPS a bit by including the Forgotten City in this list. The shooting is only really a focus for a few small sections of the game, but I liked it a lot and I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time, so if you would, just indulge me for a minute. Like I said, it has sections of first-person shooting, specifically with a bow and arrow, but that's not the majority of the game. It's a time-looping social deduction adventure game with light puzzle elements. Some players might consider it a walking simulator, and if that were a bad thing, I would warn them that they may not like it, but the game does make you talk to women, so those people probably wouldn't have played it anyway. It's a standalone game based on a Skyrim mod of the same name, and you can definitely see those Skyrim influences in the stealth archer combat and dialogue systems. Speaking of those dialogues, it's worth knowing that time in the game doesn't stop when you're speaking to someone, and that is important because, like the Outer Wilds, the game runs on a schedule, and depending on your choices, the loop will end one way or another when certain events happen. The setup is that in some kind of present day, you're sent out to find a missing person and stumble through a portal to the past where you're trapped in a city that lives by the Golden Rule. Not the treat others the way you want to be treated one. This one is, if anyone breaks any law, everyone will die. If you've ever participated in a society, you can already imagine how those in power and those with a questionable moral compass could take advantage of that system. The game builds a compelling whodunit mystery with an interesting hook and an engaging cast of characters. Every time I thought I had figured out what was going on, there was just a little bit more to unravel, and there are several different endings, but it's hard to say much more without giving away the whole shtick, so I'll just leave it there. Like many immersive sims, it's still a video game and you can't really do anything you can think of. There were several times I thought I had a good idea, only for it to fizzle out because the game just wouldn't let me do it. On the other hand, sometimes the Golden Rule will punish you for things that don't really make sense. There was at least one instance where everyone died because I admitted to an NPC that I knew when I took my actions that they would cause another NPC to die, but the rule wasn't broken when they died. The rule was broken when I acknowledged to someone else that I knew it would cause them to die. I guess acknowledging consequence is also a sin? I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot to unravel, and one of the game's best features is that once you have fully worked your way down a path of investigation, you can send out an NPC to solve problems in the town so you don't have to spend every loop doing the same thing over and over. Not every character gets the same level of development, and the true ending left me a little disappointed, but I really enjoyed the 6 to 10 hour journey, and you might too. The game is normally $20, but you can pick it up for less than $7 on a sale. Hey, another quick warning for the next one. It's got a lot of flashing lights and colors that may be unpleasant. I'll show those for about 30 seconds so you can get an idea of the regular gameplay, but then I turn it off because I think it's annoying, and I will say that I'm doing that in case you need to look away. Post Void is a little like a first-person Hotline Miami, but I imagine it's more like taking bath salts. I wouldn't know, I dared to say no to drugs in elementary school. Still, if the reviews are any indication, I think Post Void sits with Hylix in that category of fun games to play when you're high, and it's still pretty good if you're not. For me, it's aggressively overstimulating, but there is an accessibility option to reduce flashing lights, and I'll turn that on now. The premise of the game is that you have a gun in one hand and your own head in the other. Your head is full of health juice and it's running out of your severed neck. You have to get to the end of the game before it runs out. There are 11 procedurally generated maze-like levels full of enemies, and at the end of each level your health refills and you get to pick an upgrade. You lose juice over time and when you take damage, but you refill it by killing enemies. The game is a straightforward shot of light and sound, blasting fat ropes of adrenaline directly into your face. It's simple yet challenging, and despite not really caring for zoomer shooters or timed challenges, I found myself going back over and over for just one more round. The amount of time you can sink into Post Void will depend largely on your own skills, and 11 levels may not sound like a lot, but I spent more runs than I'd care to admit, failing to get past level 4, and I actually haven't beaten the game as of this writing. I'm really not very good at shooters. Post Void typically goes for only $3, but if you don't have a couch to look for change in, you can grab it on sale for as low as $2. And while we're again talking about how I'm not very good at shooters, I'd like to put in an honorable mention for Frogmonster. It's another first-person metroidvania in a game that I'm not really sure if I'll ever manage to beat. Where Post Void's difficulty comes from its emphasis on twitch reaction speed, Frogmonster's difficulty comes from my own lack of situational awareness and inability to dodge in first person. If I had to compare it to something, it would be Hollow Knight, yet another game I've never actually finished. Bosses have distinct attack patterns, your healing is limited and replenished by defeating enemies, and I think it also captures a similar sense of exploration. You can also catch bugs with your tongue to heal yourself and unlock trinkets that let you tweak your playstyle. All but the first weapon have limited ammo pools, and you'll get more ammo from slain enemies. The weapons feel distinct and decent to use, but it's just really hard. I died to the bosses over and over again, even after I turned down the difficulty. That helped me to get a little further, but my shit has been thoroughly wrecked, even in the early stages of the game. Apparently there are over 30 bosses and several challenge modes if you're that kind of masochist, but not me. I'm the guy who likes heavy armor in Dark Souls. My favorite animal is the turtle, and I am not ashamed. So don't get me wrong, I'm aware it's a me problem. Frogmonster is a good game, and I'm sure I'll come back to it when I'm in the mood for a Souls-like, but at the moment I've got a pretty low tolerance for getting kicked in the balls, so I'll have to leave this one to a real gamer. Maybe that's you. It normally goes for $20, but you can catch it on sale for $12. And that's all I've got for this one. I guess let me know what you think of this format. I generally prefer the longer, more focused reviews, but I also have a big folder of finished and half-finished games that I'll never catch up on, so maybe something like this could help me get to more games once in a while. Also let me know if you've got some good indies that you think I should check out, and you should check out my free Patreon if you'd like to see how the sausage is made. As always, thanks for watching. Later.